So last month, August 2025, it was revealed by music producer Pink Slip aka Kyle Buckley that he inserted a porn soundbite into the song Gnarly performed by the girl group Katseye.
But we're working on Gnarly. It just needed a little extra something. It needed a little extra juice, so we're looking through some sounds.
Solo the sound, so we can just hear.
Oh, this one right here?
Okay.
According to an industry insider, Bang Shi-hyuk, the creator of the group, probably knew about it too. A group's producer always grants the approval for the final version of a song. It would be near impossible to say that a producer did not know or did not intend for some element to be included in a song. In other words, it can be said that there is no way that producer Bang did not know. This set off a wave of discourse about the sexualization of the group, especially since the song includes a minor, Yoon-chae, who's only 17, but who has received around 3 years of K-pop training, meaning she's been in the industry since she was 14. And from fan forums, there's been a myriad of different posts and responses to the group's sexualization, with the majority of fans' consensus being that this gnarly clip went too far, but the way their dress, pose, their dance style, and overall look and final product is fine because it's their choice. Look at the way they dress outside of the performances before they join the group. Their body is tea, of course they want to show it off, and look at this clip of Daniela asking for her crop top to be even shorter. And my personal favorite, every other girl group and female performer is doing the exact same thing, what's the problem? But this way of thinking is precisely my problem, at least. It conflates criticism of what Katseye as a thin, mostly light-skinned girl group, essentially a brand or product whose company uses their youth and sex appeal to move merchandise and fast fashion, and ignores the fact that they are a product of a male-dominated record label, and it conflates the criticism against the label and their brand with criticism against these young women as individuals. And I'd say it's pretty clever on Hybe UMG Geffen's part to co-opt feminism and diversity, so it always makes it appear that when criticism does come, it makes it seem as though we're criticizing these young women, the label's employees, instead of the label itself. Thus it becomes increasingly difficult to say anything negative without sounding again like you're attacking the artists or their fans. And I hate that. I hate that the label gets to do that and that it works. I hate that fans make videos about how the Gap campaign is so important and diverse and are like, take that American Eagle, when they're both selling fashion made by underpaid workers. I hate how fans can pretend that the diversity of the group is so impactful as an image, but then hypocritically say that upholding thin beauty ideals and the way they dance and dress apparently has no impact on young girls, or that it's not a problem because it's their choice. I hate the selective outrage of the fandom who want to act as if the group isn't being sexualized or holding up a specific mold of what a female pop star can and should look like, but then will get angry at the gnarly soundbite. Sorry, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. But it seems to me that both their label, Hybe Geffen, and their fans want to, because to critique the entire product of Katseye would mean to call the entire thing out as just rehashed Y2K sexism, but with diversity and feminist girl boss paint on it, and I will not stand for that. Of course, there is bad faith criticism out there that does focus on slut-shaming the girls for how they dress and act, which is wrong, but honestly, how they present and act as individuals with agency, and if they want to be sexy or not, is not of interest to me. Not only because feminism is not based on individual choices and presentation, but also that the feminist and diverse branding of the group was never their choice to begin with, ironically enough. It's something that the label has thrusted onto them, that they were hired to do since Dream Academy when they set out to create a global girl group for this new generation of consumers. That's just part of their brand. What does interest me, however, is the fan culture, and how easily they are swayed into believing that the music industry really has changed and that they are in control of their look and sound and bodies. And though I do think things have gotten better, and I won't deny the fact that representation matters, the staircase challenge really isn't helping. We can't even hold Trump and Epstein and Maxwell accountable for what they did. Imagine where that leaves ordinary victims and young women who are just starting out in the pop industry in a world where abusers and men who sexualize girls get off scot-free. We're living in a post-fourth wave feminist world where both audience members and music studios and executives still want to have their cake and eat it too, where we can acknowledge some bad stuff but continue to ignore the other stuff like costuming and thin beauty ideals because questioning everything would just be too hard, and can't we just enjoy stuff? There is also real good faith criticism that I'm going to try to present here that's not against the individual young women of the group, but against the corporation and larger pop music industry that now gets to hide behind choice feminism and has co-opted diversity initiatives to shield themselves from criticism. And that's what I'm mad about, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. And before we start, I'm also part of the problem. I love Katseye, I love their costumes, their choreography, their look, and I want to see them succeed. It's clear that they're extremely dedicated to their craft, and I applaud them for it. But because I am so aware of the long history of the pop music industry exploiting young women for profit. I also err on the side of caution, and I'm very conflicted when I watch them online because I feel like I'm that Jamie Lee Curtis Freaky Friday meme of millennials listening to Olivia Rodrigo. But also, I don't like seeing young women do skinny challenges or be put in the spotlight as products. And it kills me to see Megan and Laura's faces drop during the upskirt shot of Sophia in the debut music video that was of course directed by a man. I don't like seeing young women get turned into products, and yet that is the business and I am a part of that consumer base. But I think what really irks me at the end of the day is that what they're selling both as a group and with brand collabs is all done under this guise that buying fast fashion and bath bombs and light sticks and vinyls is supporting a diversity and women when feminism isn't just an ad campaign and buying stuff. I just find this huge dissonance between the girl boss anthems and then seeing that who's spouting them are still thin, hairless young women employed by predatory male record labels who put these girls on a survival show, and now we can't even say anything against them because don't you want to see them succeed? And before we start here, I just want to say that the crux of my argument is that mainstream pop culture and politics have gotten so conservative and have shifted so far right that any form of progressivism, even a diversity ad campaign, can be heralded as a win because that's how bleak things have gotten. And I'm okay with taking wins when possible, especially in this climate, but we also shouldn't stay complacent, especially when performative diversity led us to this point to begin with. Remember when all these brands started caring about inclusion only for it to be performative? I don't know, it could just be me, but I feel like because things have moved so far right, progressive movements or moments get to be more than what they are because we're desperate for a win, without really challenging the status quo, and this in turn not only creates a performance of progress, but also posits more marginalized groups in a scarier light, as if they're asking for too much or doing too much in comparison. Can't you just be happy with performative diversity? Just take the win. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So without further ado, let's go. So what do I mean by the sexualization of girl groups, and in this case Katseye? Because a lot of the time it seems like when people point out that Katseye is sexualized to move products and to turn a profit, it gets refuted by, don't you think women have agency? They're not being sexualized, they like dressing that way. And to that I say, both things can be true. They can dress however they want, but those choices don't equate to feminism, and that's fine. Not everything a woman does will be empowering or feminist, and that's not a problem. Sexual liberation under capitalist patriarchy will never exist, so it's kind of just a moot point. Under capitalist patriarchy, it's hard, if not impossible, to make any feminist choice since there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, even when it comes to pop music, and thus most of our choices are confined to that system, and we should be wary to think we can make any choice free of male influence. Not to mention that some women make choices that are regressive and choose to be horrible to other human beings, so no, feminism cannot be based on our choices. When it comes to physical appearance and how we as women view and present ourselves, Margaret Atwood wrote in The Robber Bride, even pretending you aren't catering to male fantasies is a male fantasy. Pretending you're unseen, pretending you have a life of your own, that you can wash your feet and comb your hair, unconscious of that ever-present watcher peering through the keyhole in your own head if nowhere else. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. When we talk about young women being sexualized in pop culture and in the male-dominated music industry and entertainment industry at large, it usually comes down to, well, it's their choice, when that's besides the point, not to mention can lead to victim blaming. This framing continues to use choice feminism, so we can all have our cake and eat it too. But again, multiple things can be true at once, that they are being sexualized, that they are beautiful, and that they can do whatever they want, but also that's not necessarily empowering or radical, and that's okay too, and they shouldn't be demonized for that. When it comes to the sexualization debate, this choice feminist defense ends up deflecting valid criticism of the pop music industry that continues to profit off of young, thin, usually light-skinned women by using their sexuality as a selling point. In the end, it's okay that Katseye is not empowering nor feminist despite being postured that way by their fans and by Hype Geffen, but because it's okay that they're not radical, we shouldn't use feminism, or at least a perverted version of it, that being choice feminism, as a way to assuage criticism of their brand. Let's not pretend we don't see it. And I can't stand that music labels have co-opted feminism and diversity to make it seem like this is a new girl group for the progressive era and that fans are falling for it, without realizing this is just 2000s nostalgia for Gen Alpha tweens. From the callback music to the fashion to the beauty ideal, being thin, showing midriffs and whale tails and tracksuits. It's just romanticized Y2K but in ethnically diverse bodies, so I guess it's all cool now. We can have our cake and eat it too. That's not to say that diversity doesn't matter, and Laura has spoken out recently about how important the Gap ad was to her and her fans as a South Indian woman with dark skin, but I also hate how that obfuscates the fact that Gap is just another fast fashion brand just like American Eagle. Not to mention that Hype Geffen and Gap now get all this good press, as being forward-thinking and diverse without making any changes to how they use young women's sexuality as a selling feature, how they make sure the girls maintain their thin physiques, and will use their bodies and images to sell even more fast fashion and products in the future. And sometimes I wonder if I'm too cynical or too harsh, like let people enjoy stuff. I also don't want to downplay the fact that Megan and Lara have come out as members of the LGBTQ plus community, and how that is huge and is changing the mold of what it means to be a successful pop girl and even role model. And I think that's amazing, and that is definitely challenging, again, to the status quo, and it shouldn't be overlooked. However, I personally still find the entire thing to be pretty conflicting when it comes to what kind of bodies are lifted up, the thin ideal, the romanticization of Y2K, and the general dubiousness of hype Geffen. These are my opinions, you can disagree with them, and I don't want to take away like these wins. At the same time, with brands being involved, I don't know, it makes me feel cynical. And I do really try to be the woman who stops being a feminist for 30 minutes to enjoy things, but honestly, it's 2025. It's really hard to do that for me personally. When it comes to Katseye and the fandom, I really don't think it's helpful to open up the discourse about how shocking or bad it was to have this sound clip in Gnarly, and then not also look at the larger picture of how they've been branded as a mix of sexy cute from the beginning. It's not subtle. Since buttons on Dream Academy went viral, it's clear what Hype Geffen wanted to sell, a newer looking pussycat dolls. And though the Katseye members are great and are talented, amazing young women, and the songs and dances are fire, I think we shouldn't also ignore the fact that as much as things have changed, the more they've stayed the same. And we should not be afraid to call out the fact that the mold to be a successful female pop singer or group member in 2025 still depends on your sex and physical appeal to the general mass market, and more specifically to the young female consumer, and that for all of Hype Geffen's so-called progressiveness, they're still frankly very regressive. In the specific case of Katseye, priming young girls on Dream Academy to be exploited because this is your dream, right? A lot of the time when it comes to scouting talent at young ages, it's not about skill set, it's about who is going to be the easiest to mold into what I want them to be, who will be the most easily manipulated, and that scares the shit out of me. That combined with the confining mold pop star girls and young women need to fit into is not only unfair, but also works to uphold a singular standard of beauty and keep young women in line, because anyone who deviates from that expected norm, that mold, might end up flopping. And that's really scary for young women who are just starting their career. In what way is Hype Geffen challenging the already very narrow box to be a successful female pop singer? And I get that the diversity thing is really big and important, especially two of the members have come out, so it's a big reason as to why I'm a fan. But I'm also not going to pretend that the fast fashion Gap ad is revolutionary. In the end, there really is no other path to success for young women in girl groups if they're not branded as sexy to consumers, and we eat it up because even we aren't ready to let go of that. Some fans have pointed out that Lara and Manon of Katseye, the two darker skinned members, though Manon does benefit from colorism as a light-skinned biracial African and European woman, are dressed more provocatively than the other members, and I have noticed that too, though I will say it's not a hard and fast rule, as Megan, Sophia, and Daniela also sometimes are put in more provocative looks too, and though that may be their choice, I again err on the side of caution in an industry that discreetly put a porn sound effect in a song directed at kids and tweens. And Sophia even got her nose done and honestly has lost a lot of weight, and we could say it was her choice, but is it her choice when the expectation is to be super thin and have a high nose bridge? Yet another reason why choice feminism will never work. And yes, I'm still on that staircase challenge. I hate it. I will add that the straightening of Sophia's nose probably was up to her, and that doesn't change that she's an important Filipina representation in the group, but that's not the point. But rather, what I do want to highlight is what constitutes as a choice under capitalist patriarchy for women when regarding physical appearance is very dubious. I'd argue that we simply have the illusion of choice, but that's just me. Feel free to disagree down below. Yoonchae is usually the one that's more covered up because she's a minor, even though she's the one who gets a close-up during the moaning part of Gnarly. Some fans have also said that including choreography where a minor twerks was also dubious, but to be honest, when it comes to nitpicks like that, I think the entire concept of girl groups and pop singers falls apart, because then you kind of just open an entire Pandora's box where you either have to face the truth that this whole thing is fucked and perhaps no one under 18 should be famous, or you're gonna just be a part of the selective outrage train so you can continue to have your cake and eat it too. And frankly, I'm in the camp that this whole thing is just fucked, not just Katseye, but the entire pop girl entertainment industry. And they could be the happiest, most organic group ever created with total control over every aspect of their image under this label, but that still wouldn't change my mind that they're also not radical, and that's okay. Let's not pretend there's something more than what they are. That's not to say that the women aren't hardworking and talented or undeserving of their bag, or that the music is bad bad because it's actually amazing, which makes this realization so hard to stomach. But if we're going to really go there, I think we have to come to the realization that the pop music industry under capitalist patriarchy will always be problematic and sexist, no matter how much male-owned labels try to prove otherwise. Feminism aims to work at a systemic level to take down patriarchal structures and norms like the female pop music industry built on young women's hard work and labor and exploitation of their images and youth, and it will never be done from the inside, and we'd be naive to think otherwise. And I know what you're thinking. You're critiquing society, yet you take part in it. What's the point of calling this out? Can't we just enjoy stuff? Okay, so Katseye isn't radical. You're naive to look for progress in pop music. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so what? But I personally think that if you're going to call out one thing, I think it's only fair to discuss all of it. That's why the gnarly outrage thing bothered me so much. Not only was it a dubious thing to do, but it led to this selective, again, outrage, where people can be mad at one thing, but then not critique the much larger system at play that continues to use young women for profit and then sell this fantasy to even younger girls that this is what you should look like, what you should buy, and how you should act. And this critique isn't aimed at the members, of course. They can be sexy if they want to and not be judged for it, and they do have some control over their public image, but it's hard to tell the difference between what is consensual versus what is coercive because of the nature of their job and the industry they've grown up in and have been trained in. Being sexy is their job. Being a certain size is their job. Wearing a certain type of outfit is their job, so it's hard to know what is authentically them versus not them. And again, I'd like to err on the side of caution, like with the upskirt shot, or what videos they have to post online. I think another reason why Katseye feels so organic is because with short form content, it feels like they really are talking to you and are making these little videos just happen. But even Megan has said that to do one of her most viral videos, it took her like 3 hours to film. With social media, everything looks so effortless and intimate. This isn't to say that they're being held hostage, of course, to do certain things, but rather coercion in workplace environments and in the entertainment industry isn't always obvious, but rather trust is built up over time until something is so normalized that you don't even know you're being manipulated. Thankfully, I think they all have strong support systems and many of their family members were in the industry and they seem to all be friends, but how much control they have over their final product or image remains unknown to us as fans, so I think it's pretty presumptuous to think that everything's done above board, knowing the history of exploitation of young women in the music industry and the general insidiousness of how the group was even created. To conclude this very short part, there is not going to be any ethical consumption of pop music under capitalism, and we'd be naive to think that this time it's different, no matter how much we wish things were different. Not only because the production of vinyls is bad for the environment and brand collabs with fast fashion houses are wasteful and everything is about making money, but also because the employees, the artists of these labels, are usually young women just finding themselves who have been specifically chosen because they fit a desired mold dictated by patriarchal capitalism that has already been proven to be profitable. No matter how hype Geffen and the fans want to spin the group into girl bosses for a new feminist era, it's just sadly more of the same. Radical change is more than just a brand collab and a billboard, and again, that's not the girls' fault, but rather a byproduct of the corporation they work for, and the larger capitalist system we live in that absorbs any critique made against it. And lastly, why should you care? I guess you don't have to if you don't want to, but I think it's important for us as fans and consumers to continue to be critical of the images and media put in front of us. As someone wise once said, it's both possible and even necessary to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects. On the flip side, I know that there's been a growing movement to make media sexy again because artistic censorship is a hallmark of fascism. So I know complaining about the early 2000s sexiness that this group is bringing back is kind of riding a slippery slope with some people. I don't want to say that women, especially young women who are just getting to know themselves, can't be sexy on their own terms and even profit from it. Though I'm not sure how much Katseye, like the members, are making under Hype Geffen, but rather I don't think images of young women directed by a corporation whose primary goal is to make money is what sexual liberation is, nor is it empowering. Especially when there's a minor in the group, which honestly, the more I think about it, the more I don't think anyone under 18 should be famous. One of my patrons even said that their 13-year-old niece even realizes that the minor of the group, Yunche, has been sexualized. Again, it's not subtle. Not everything a woman does will be liberating or empowering, and that's okay, but that defense doesn't work here when it comes to critiques of their public images that are obviously curated by a marketing team, a PR team, and fashion and music companies. It's not organic or nor authentic. though they try, of course, to paint it as such. And that's okay, that's the business, everyone's doing it for sure. But that also doesn't mean we can't say it's wrong, especially when the posturing is progressive. I guess what I'm personally sick of is that some fans and Hype Geffen are pretending that Katseye is more than what they are because we don't need to pretend it's something empowering to enjoy it, just let it be. Sexual liberation for women is a promise that cannot be fulfilled under capitalist patriarchy and white supremacy, and I think we should be especially wary when it comes to women of color in the music industry who are sometimes used as a shield from criticism as progressive tokens, when in reality they're just being used to sell a product. And personally, I'm a little tired of framing sexual liberation through pop singers and brands who, like I've already talked about, have to fit such a narrow mold of what a woman can be in the first place. So I can imagine some Katseye fans, if they're even still watching this, are angry at what I'm saying here because it does feel like I've minimized their impact, which I don't really want to do. Katseye as a global girl group is significant, especially through their ethnic diversity, though some have pointed out colorism within the group with Manon, and also the straightening of Sophia's nose, and their generally very thin aesthetic. But aside from that, they are very talented, beautiful, hardworking women who are very charismatic, and it shows. I'm not here to attack you for liking Katseye, I like Katseye too. I also agree that they are not role models for young girls and tweens. They deserve agency to mess up and not be perfect and present however they want to in this world. They do not have to be feminist icons or role models, and that's unfair to put that burden on their shoulders. But yet, that is their brand. That is what Hype Geffen wants from this global diverse girl boss group, and that's what fans take away. The record label has thrusted this idea that these girls are role models and diversity queens as part of their image. Their ethnicity is basically their entire identity in the group. And I personally find that unfair and even, dare I say, unfeminist to make these young women make their entire ethnic and gender identity their brand. That is what really concerns me. Because fourth wave feminism has been so co-opted by corporations and audiences alike, it has actually made role models of women and girls simply by virtue of being famous women and girls, when again, that's not true and very unfair. Not all women are feminists. Women have their own individual political beliefs, and women deserve space to do what they want without the constraints of being assigned this title of feminist role model, because feminism again is not based on a woman's choice or by simply being a woman. But Hype Geffen has used this supposedly feminist positioning to shield both the group and themselves from criticism, and has been fairly successful at it. And those celebrities aren't role models. I do think they still have influence, and that shouldn't be denied, hence why they do so many brand collabs. We can't pretend that they don't have influence over young female fans' body images, but then do have influence when it comes to advertising products. And the way they're dressed and dance on stage, it's all through the male gaze and curated in a way that is the least challenging to societal expectations of female pop stars. And I say it's done through the male gaze not in that they're dancing for men to notice them, but rather they're dancing for girls who are viewing themselves through a patriarchal lens. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. It's so hard to shake the male gaze from a patriarchal society because it's not only what is poised to sell more, but because we really don't know another way, at least in the mainstream, to view our own bodies. That's why it's so insidious. Even when female pop stars are performing and selling themselves as a product for young girls to consume, even when they say they're doing it for themselves, that's a male fantasy. All of our actions, even when performing for other young women, it's still all shaped through male expectations and desires. Welcome to the patriarchy. We as women have never known a world without it, and thus to create a new world or fight against this current one, it's extremely difficult. This doesn't mean that you as an individual can't find power and meaning in their music and do the dances and find them fun, but I also don't think we should pretend they're anything but fun dances and music. And that's not to say that women can't think for themselves or don't have agency, because they do, but rather that doesn't make someone's actions or choices feminist. So that's it for this video. These are just my thoughts and opinions. You don't need to agree with them, and if you disagree, I'm sure you'll write why in the comments below. In the end, I find Hype Geffen really dubious for trying to continue to have their cake and eat it too. To say they're making this progressive, diverse global girl group only to not really deviate from any established norms, and then make us, the audience, be okay with it because they supposedly care about their artists and want to protect them, but are also okay with letting the member who's a minor dance to a porn soundbite. Like, okay. And part of it is on us as the audience, because we're not really ready to call out the entire production because we enjoy the product, even when we know there's problems. me included. I don't like critiquing them because I want them to succeed, but part of being a fan is remaining critical. It's not easy to reconcile these two truths, that something that is fun and catchy is also dictated by focus groups and board members, and that money is the driving factor of most of the art that's placed in front of you. So that's it for this one. I hope you liked it and that I'm not too off base here. It was a short little rant that I had in me for a while. I know it sounds kind of cynical, but I truly think that we need to be highly critical of the images we consume. Otherwise, we'll become too susceptible to progressive marketing that really doesn't change anything. Unfortunately, systemic change is a lot bigger and harder to do than a billboard, not taking away the power from the image or this little win, but we have a long way to go. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.